My family laughed in my face when I begged to join their fancy retreat, saying there was no space for me, like I was some stray dog they could shoo away. For years, they'd treated me like the black sheep, my cousins mocking my dead-end job, my aunts whispering about my failure of a life, and my uncle, the big-shot real estate mogul, always sneering that I'd never amount to anything. Little did they know, I'd been grinding in secret for a decade, building a real estate empire that dwarfed their wildest dreams. I stood there, swallowing their insults, knowing I'd already bought the entire resort they were headed to. Hey, if you're loving this twist, smash that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping reveals. That night, as they packed their designer bags for the retreat, I got a call from my lawyer confirming the deal was sealed. I owned every inch of the 500-acre luxury estate, from the crystal-clear lake to the 5-star spa they were dying to brag about on social media. I could have told them right then, but where's the fun in that? I wanted them to walk in, heads high, only to see my name on the welcome sign. The next morning, I drove up alone, my beat-up old car rattling past their shiny SUVs, and parked right at the entrance. As they strutted toward the lobby, my cousin Jenna scoffed, "What are you even doing here, Ethan? You can't afford a place like this." I just smiled, saying nothing, while the resort manager rushed out, bowing slightly, and handed me the master key. Their jaws dropped, but before they could say a word, I turned to the manager and said, "Make sure my family gets the best rooms, for now." What did I have planned? They were about to find out I wasn't just crashing their party, I was running the whole show. I watched my family shuffle into the resort's grand lobby, their eyes wide like kids in a candy store, oblivious to the fact that I, Ethan, the loser they'd mocked for years, held the deed to this $50 million paradise. Jenna, my cousin, was already snapping selfies by the marble fountain, bragging to her followers about our exclusive retreat, while Uncle Greg, with his smug grin, lectured everyone about how only real players could afford a place like this. I stood quietly by the check-in desk, my faded jacket and scuffed shoes making me look out of place, but I was savoring the moment. They thought I was tagging along out of desperation, maybe hoping for their scraps, but I'd been planning this for months, ever since I overheard their "no space for Ethan" jab at last year's family dinner. If you're hooked on this revenge, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe for more epic twists. The manager, a sharp guy named Tom, played his part perfectly, handing me a leather-bound folder with the resort's financials while my family gawked. "Mr. Carter," he said loudly, "your instructions for the retreat are ready, shall we proceed?" Aunt Linda's wine glass nearly slipped from her hand, and Jenna's phone froze mid-video. "What's he talking about, Ethan?" Uncle Greg barked, his face turning red. I flipped open the folder, revealing the ownership papers with my signature in bold, and said, "Oh, just some business I closed recently, like buying this resort." The silence was deafening, their smugness crumbling like cheap plaster. But I wasn't done. I leaned in, voice low, and added, "I've got a special surprise for the welcome dinner tonight, hope you're ready to eat your words." What was coming next? Let's just say their perfect retreat was about to become my stage. The sun dipped below the resort's pristine lake as my family gathered in the opulent dining hall, their whispers buzzing like flies, trying to figure out how I, Ethan, the guy they'd called a nobody, had pulled off owning this multi-million-dollar estate. Jenna kept darting nervous glances my way, her usual snark replaced by a tight-lipped frown, while Uncle Greg, still puffing out his chest, muttered to Aunt Linda that I must have scammed someone to afford this. I sat at the head of the long oak table, my old flannel shirt a stark contrast to their designer outfits, letting them stew in their confusion. I'd spent years building my empire in the shadows, flipping properties, securing investors, and turning rundown lots into gold mines, while they laughed at my pathetic life. Yo, if this drama's got you hooked, smash that like button, share this with your crew, and subscribe for more insane twists. The waiters poured wine, and Tom, the manager, dimmed the lights, signaling the start of my big moment. I stood, clinking my glass, and said, "Thanks for coming to my resort. I know you didn't want me here, but I figured I'd make room for myself." Their faces froze as I nodded to Tom, who flicked on a massive screen behind me. It displayed a timeline of my deals, every property, every dollar, every late night they never knew about, culminating in the resort's purchase. Aunt Linda gasped, and Jenna's fork clattered to her plate. "This can't be real," Uncle Greg sputtered, but I cut him off, voice calm but sharp. "Oh, it's real. And tomorrow, you're all joining me for a little tour. There's something else I've been keeping quiet about." What was it? Let's just say the resort was only the beginning of their wake-up call. The morning sun blazed over the resort as my family trudged behind me, their faces a mix of shock and resentment, still reeling from last night's bombshell that I, Ethan, owned this entire paradise. Uncle Greg's usual swagger was gone, replaced by a scowl as he whispered to Jenna, probably cooking up some excuse to dismiss my success as a fluke. I led them across the lush grounds, past the infinity pool and toward the private helipad, where a sleek black helicopter gleamed under the sunlight. For years, I'd let them believe I was scraping by, working dead-end jobs, while I was quietly amassing a fortune, buying up resorts, vineyards, even a private island they didn't know about yet. If this twist has you glued, hit that like button, share with your squad, and subscribe for more wild reveals. As we reached the helipad, I turned to face them, my voice steady. "You always said I'd never make it, but I've been building something bigger than you could imagine." I gestured to the chopper, where a pilot stood ready, and added, "This is how I get to my other properties." Jenna's jaw dropped, and Aunt Linda clutched her purse like it was her lifeline. Uncle Greg tried to laugh it off, saying, "Nice rental, Ethan," but his voice cracked. I smirked and tossed him a set of keys, not to the chopper, but to a golf cart. "You'll need this to keep up," I said, climbing into the helicopter. As the blades roared to life, I leaned out and shouted, "Meet me at the vineyard tonight, you're in for another surprise." What was waiting for them? Something that would make this resort look like pocket change. The vineyard's golden hills stretched out under the evening sky as my family arrived, their faces twisted with envy and disbelief, still processing that I, Ethan, wasn't just the owner of the resort but a mogul with a portfolio spanning continents. Jenna's designer heels sank into the dirt as she muttered about showing off, while Uncle Greg, red-faced, kept glancing at the rows of grapevines like they'd personally insulted him. I'd spent a decade in the shadows, turning rundown properties into empires, enduring their taunts about my wasted potential at every family gathering. Now, standing on my 200-acre vineyard, I held the keys to a world they'd never touched. Yo, if this epic comeback has you hooked, smash that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe for the final jaw-dropper. I led them to a candlelit terrace overlooking the estate, where a massive oak table was set with crystal glasses and bottles of wine bearing my name, Carter Estate Reserve. "This is my latest project," I said, pouring a glass. "Worth $75 million and counting." Aunt Linda's eyes nearly popped out, and Jenna choked on her sip. Uncle Greg, desperate to save face, scoffed, "You're just leasing this, right?" I laughed, handing him a deed with my signature. "Bought it outright. And there's more." I pointed to the horizon, where lights twinkled from a private jet circling above. "That's mine too," I said, watching their smugness evaporate. "Stick around for dessert, I've got one last thing to show you." What was it? Something that would flip their world upside down and leave them begging for a seat at my table.